In today's video, let's hear the tale of Hlormar Winesot and Sosia Christiana featured in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Then, I'll tell the story of the paralyzed barbarian, which, in many ways, could tie everything together for the conflict within this saga. The first story contains choices for the player to make, and ultimately dictates life and death for third parties. As per usual, the facts and information presented within this piece are from the game itself, as well as the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. This account, like many others, begins with walking along the road in the West Gash region of Vardenfell. Almost immediately after departing from the town of Caldera and heading northwest, I laid eyes on a fairly strange sight. Standing at the crossroads was a tall, muscular male Nord. His face was painted blue, but what made him quite odd was the fact that he was naked from head to toe. He was pacing back and forth along the road, clearly in need of something. I decided to halt my travels and let my curiosity take the better of me. I approached the Nord, Hlormar Winesot, and began speaking with him. He opens with, "Hail and well met, stranger. As you can plainly see, I require some assistance if you be kind enough to grant it. I need help finding the festering witch who has robbed me blind and left me for dead." Inquiring about the so-called festering witch, Hlormar says, "A witch she had to be. I was on my way to Caldera when I met her. She was a stranger here, like myself, and our conversation lightened the burden of travel. She was quite friendly, and well, we set up camp together. But that night, she revealed the witch inside, cast a spell on me. I couldn't so much as blink. Stole everything, even my worn out clothes. But most importantly, she took my prized axe, Cloud Cleaver. Join with me, stranger, and let's find her and extract her entrails together." It's at this point I'm prompted with two different dialogue options. The first is to say that I'll help him find her. The second is to say that I have too much else to do. The former progresses the quest, and the latter ends it, with Hlormar saying, "Bah, I took you for a coward the moment I saw you. Stand aside then, and make way for any real warriors who be walking this path." Any more talk on the matter will result in him saying, "I've no more to say to you, coward. Get out of my sight." Choosing to help Hlormar Winesot though, he responds with, "I knew you had the bloodlust in you, stranger. I believe she's still camped where I left her up to the northwest. Though I could be wrong, as the spell disoriented me a bit, it did. You know this area better than me. Lead the way. This witch shall rule the day she met Hlormar Winesot." At this point, I asked about his prized axe, Cloud Cleaver. He responded with, "Ah, my axe Cloud Cleaver. A fine blade she is, though now I fear what that witch's touch will do to it. My own father, Balmir, used it himself to slay the terror of Hrothgar's quagmire, he did. Now granted, the terror turned out to be a newborn nixhound eating the neighbor's marshmallow, but my father found him and slew him nevertheless in as grand a fashion as I have ever borne witness to. I cannot wait to have the blade in my hands again. Then, I'll use it to take that witch's head clean off, I will." Exiting the conversation, Hlormar begins to follow my movements and goes wherever I go. His only directions for finding this witch are somewhere to the northwest of here, and he isn't really so sure of that. He also says that I know the area better than him, but from my personal experiences whilst playing this game, that I believe stands to be untrue. I begin walking along the road and take any pathway that leads me northwest. I get a gut feeling though that wherever this witch is, she can't be that far from Hlormar's original location. I lay eyes on Siorvar Horsemouth's Squar farm and become fairly certain that I've gone too far. I begin to cut back through the boulder fields and rolling hills. As it turns out, Hlormar was correct in that we needed to go northwest. It's just that the very first fork in the road had a pathway more or less in that direction, and another leading even more in that direction. This time, going down the alternate path, I soon spot a woman clad in robes pacing along the road. I assumed that this was our target, so I got in close and began to speak with Sosia Christiana. She opens with asking, "What can I do for you?" I bring up the topic of Cloud Cleaver, and she responds with, "Oh, I don't think he's ready to get it back quite yet. I can still see the rage burning in those tiny Nord eyes of his. However, if he meets me in 3 days at the Mages Guild Hall in Caldera, I will return everything I have of his, but not a minute sooner. Tell him that is Sosia's offer." Any further inquiry about her terms, and she says, You've heard my offer, and it will not change. Funny enough, Hlormar is standing right there beside us, and he's seemingly a lot calmer than he said he was going to be. Returning back to him, he comedically opens with, "Seems a bit chilly today, doesn't it?" Telling him Sosia's offer for all of his things, he responds with saying, "Well, I'll not be waiting another 3 days to have my bloody axe when it's in the hands of that damned witch. Are you going to help me, friend? Or are you believing the lie spilling out of that witch's face?" This is when I'm prompted with another choice. I can tell Hlormar that I'll side with him, or say that I believe Sosia. Both of these lead to different outcomes, but ultimately the same fate for my character. If I decide to side with Sosia, Hlormar says, "Then you will die alongside her." This is when the fight between the Nord and I begins. He doesn't hit that hard as he only has fists to brawl with. However, I had fairly low fatigue and would constantly get knocked down. After using all of my magicka and needing to switch to my spear, I thought it best to pop a levitate potion and recover my fatigue in the air. Once it had worn off, I dropped back down and began attacking with my thrust weapon. All the meanwhile, Sosia isn't doing anything to help out. I'm literally defending her from attempted murder, and she's just wandering back and forth in the same spot, ignoring what's happening around her. Eventually, I deliver the killing blow on Hlormar, and the Nord is no longer a threat. Returning back to the witch, I bring up the topic of Cloud Cleaver, and Sosia responds, "Hlormar's obsession with that axe led to his death. I'll leave it with someone who can use it well. I thank you for your help, stranger. I think that hothead would have killed me had you not intervened. Here, take these potions as my gift to you, and seek me out if you ever require my services in the future." She rewards me with an exclusive Restore Health potion, a quality Restore Fatigue potion, and a quality Fortify Health potion. Asking further about Hlormar, Sosia responds with, "I'm sorry to hear he's dead, but he was a fool. Such is the way fools meet their end, and I will take Cloud Cleaver to one who can handle its power." Exiting the conversation, that's one of the 4 outcomes that can come from this quest. Reverting back to Hlormar's question of who will I choose to side with, him or Sosia, this time I choose him. He exclaims, "Then let's show this witch the way to her grave together." Hlormar and I rush over to Sosia, and of course, now she decides to put in some defensive efforts. The Nord brawls with his fists while I thrust away with my spear. She's casting some type of magic on Hlormar, although I'm not so sure what spell it is. Her health gets relatively low when all of a sudden, she heals quite a lot of it and pulls out a staff. She mainly keeps her attention on Hlormar. Not only does the staff deal base damage, but there's seemingly also some type of enchantment on it. I didn't know if Hlormar could die or not in this instance, and I didn't want to find out as I really wanted my reward. We continued to press the attack, even knocking her onto the ground. Eventually, we defeated Sosia and I began to loot her body. I took her steel staff of chastening, which damages attributes of personality and luck, both for 3 to 8 points each. She had some potions on her clothing, as well as Cloud Cleaver. Upon taking the axe, Hlormar instantly intervenes by saying, "You have Cloud Cleaver, my friend. I would like it back." When the topic of the axe is brought up, he responds with, "Yes, let me hold her in my hands. Ah, my pretty, I've missed you so." I'm then prompted with 2 choices. One is to give the axe back. The other is to keep it for myself. The latter instigates a fight between me and the Nord, a repetition of the events in which were just shown. The former results in giving Cloud Cleaver back to him. Ecstatic, he says, "Ah, thank you, friend. I noticed you admiring the way I fought that old witch, even without the aid of a sharp blade. I don't have any money or treasure to thank you for your help with, but I can give you a few pointers that will help you be stronger in a fight." This then results in a permanent +2 to my strength attribute, which is incredibly helpful. When asked again about the festering witch, he says, "It is good she's dead." While the quest has technically ended, there's one more thing to take care of. You see, the first outcome has Hlormar die, and the reward given to the player is a couple of potions. The second outcome has Sosia die, and the player decides to keep Cloud Cleaver. This results in a fight to the death, and you get to keep the enchanted axe. The third outcome is the one just witnessed. The axe is handed over, and you get a +2 buff to the strength attribute. Now comes the fourth outcome. After receiving the buff, I decided to have my cake and eat it too by killing Hlormar. It was nothing personal or extremely nefarious, but I wanted Cloudcleaver. This time, I had my magicka ready for use, but he had his axe. One hit and my health was down to half. I had to be really careful and keep my distance. 3 casts with touch fire magic and Hlormar was dead. Cloudcleaver is a 2-handed axe that deals quite a lot of damage. It also has a shock enchantment that deals anywhere from 1 to 25 points of damage on touch. Even though my character isn't proficient with axes, it could probably fetch some decent gold at a trade house. With that, the quest, recovering Cloudcleaver, is truly concluded. Here are all of the relevant notes laid out in the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. In the patch version of Morrowind, Cloudcleaver can be pickpocketed from Sosia and handed back to Hlormar. This results in foregoing a fight with either party. Apparently, killing Sosia and retrieving the axe before speaking with Hlormar results in a game-breaking bug. Hlormar will begin speaking with the player, and it's impossible to return his axe. Attempting to close the dialogue with him will result in a new window opening immediately, essentially trapping you in conversation. Hlormar won't increase your strength skill past level 100, so there is no benefit to handing him the axe besides a journal entry. If you sided with Hlormar, he stays in the same area after completing the quest and doesn't end up putting on any clothes. Apparently, if Hlormar is killed while the two of you are fighting Sosia, the quest is never registered as completed. Interestingly, if you sided with Sosia and haven't killed Hlormar yet, you can speak with her and she will convey the same dialogue as if the Nord has been defeated. Finally, there's apparently a way to get all 3 rewards without killing anybody. It involves calm spells and drain fatigue spells. First, Winesot must be kept as far away from Sosia as possible. Then, her offer must be heard. Next, you pickpocket Cloudcleaver from Sosia. Following this, tell Winesot about her offer and side with the witch. Immediately after, you cast a calming spell on him and return back to Sosia. She will then hand over the potions. From there, you lure Winesot over to Cloudcleaver and find a way to bring him to the ground via a fatigue or paralysis method. This is where you pick up Cloudcleaver and return it back to him. You get the +2 buff, and immediately after the conversation, you pickpocket him while he's still immobilized, and before he's able to equip the axe. He'll try to kill you afterwards, but can be calmed down once more. So where does this leave the tale? Was there a right side and a wrong side? Was it a misunderstanding between the two parties? Well, there's a little more information that needs to come to light. I apologize, but I'm about to get very nitpicky about the most minute of details. One of the responses that comes from Sosia when asked about Hlormar is such: "Ha, a right funny story that one is. The true story, Bard, is that I took Hlormar on as a traveling companion for protection only for the road to Caldera. Along the way, he was getting entirely too friendly for his own good, to the point where I actually had to cast a sleep spell on him. Just to teach him a lesson in manners, I stripped him and left him by the road. And to be sure he didn't come after me for retribution, I took that Cloudcleaver he's always fawning over as well." She could also respond by saying, "I have no more to say about that barbarian." This definitely sheds a new light on the circumstances. Her story deviates from Hlormar's in a few different ways. The first is that there's no mention of them making camp together. Perhaps it was implied, but she makes it sound as if she cast the sleeping spell on him while they were traveling, and then left him on the side of the road. This could be more likely, as I don't see how or even why she would have moved Hlormar's body so far away from their alleged camp spot, although a mage would have many ways of pulling off such an act. The second deviation is that Sosia said she cast a sleeping spell on him, while Hlormar implies that it was a paralysis spell. Hlormar mentioned that he was lucid throughout all of it, as he remarks he was unable to blink. This would certainly help out his claim that they were indeed at a camp, as he was even able to point out the direction that it was in, leading to Sosia's location. Then finally, Sosia claimed that Hlormar was making inappropriate advances towards her, which is why she put him to sleep and stole his goods in the first place. Meanwhile, Hlormar said that she was the one who was being quite friendly with him. The two perspectives are that of a thieving witch who tricked and stole from the barbarian, or a barbarian who harassed a wandering mage and got what he deserved. There are still a few more unanswered questions to the story though. Why was Sosia just wandering around the area the two had allegedly made camp at? Was it in hopes of returning Hlormar's things back to him, thinking he had learned his lesson? Was it perhaps to find a new escort into town? Or was it maybe that she was looking for her next victim to trick into stealing their goods? She claims that she was on her way to Caldera, but for some reason backtracks further away from the town. Where she had left Hlormar on the road couldn't have been more than 200 meters away from her destination and within eyeshot. Sosia also mentioned that she would return his items back to him at the Mages Guild Hall in 3 days. This could have been a trick into getting further away from Hlormar and making off with his goods, or really the truth about wanting him to calm down before she hands back his belongings. Finally, the last piece I want to bring up, which could entirely sway the story, is that Hlormar might not have been Sosia's first victim. There's another NPC in the nearby area that has the exact same thing happen to him as Hlormar. He's also a Nord, and in fact, his fate is even closer to what Sosia had described for Winesot. Along the road, just a little further northwest from where Sosia's Christiana was located, there stands a man on the road. He's almost as naked as Hlormar was, donning undergarments, gloves, boots, and a peculiar headpiece. Approaching to speak with the Nord, Hisin Deepraid, he opens with, You will speak with me now, or you shall feel the bite of my axe. When this enchantment wears off, Hisin Deepraid will shed some blood. From here, I inquired about the enchantment, and he responded with, Aye, a foul witch has given me some enchanted disease, leaving me rooted to the spot. She called it Witch Wither. Foul temptress? I had been her escort. She was a big woman. Friendly, you know? Then the damned witch ensorcelled me, leaving me at this spot, nearly naked, to display my shame to the world. Hisin Deepraid is not accustomed to being mocked, stranger. I shall paint the ground with her entrails. I'm then prompted with 3 different options. The first is to agree to help him by giving him a potion. The second is to help him via spell. The third is to tell him he'll need to wait for the curse to wear off. By choosing the first, he responds with, You have honor, Bard. I am a man of standing among my people. My father and my father's father and his father before him have had songs sung of their deeds, and I shall be no different. I distrust potions in general, but bring me one from a reputable alchemist, release me from this bondage, and I will reward you. Then I shall cleave that whore in twain. Choosing the second, he responds with, You've a spell to cure this malady? If this is a trick, stranger, yours will be the second neck I snap. Never mind. Go ahead with your spell. I couldn't be worse off than I am now. Treat me fairly, Bard, and I will reward you. Hisin Deepraid shall have his revenge. The third option ends the quest, and Hisin says, Bah, I'll rid myself of this disease through sheer force of will. You'd best be going, stranger, for when I break free, I'll want to test the blade of my axe, and your neck will work just fine. This locks you out of the quest, and there's no way to continue it from here. For the options that involve helping Deepraid, a potion of cure common disease or a spell of the same effect will suffice. These can be obtained by local merchants or at the Mages Guild. He asks for a reputable source from both the potion and spell, but apparently he doesn't care in the end. Whichever method is chosen, he starts out by complimenting me and the means of which he was freed, potion or spell. Then he says, Take this, my family's helm, ice cap. It was worn by my father, and by his father before him. It will protect you from the coldest of nights. Wear it with honor. Now, I must go kill that witch. I shall plant her head on a stake for all to see. Exiting the conversation, the ice cap is a light armor fur helm. It has the constant effect of resisting frost for 30 points on self. According to the unofficial wiki, if Deepraid is killed while he's cursed, the player can be infected with the same Witch Wither disease if you loot his body. This results in you paralyzed and stuck, the same as Hisin was. I tried multiple times to see if this would happen, but never ended up getting afflicted with the curse. However, I am at the point in the main questline where I'm unaffected by diseases, so this most likely played a huge factor. This quest is quite shorter than the previous one and is a lot more straightforward. The point I would like to focus on though is how he describes his encounter with the witch. He says that he was escorting her, although he doesn't say to where. He describes her as a big woman and friendly. I wouldn't call Sosia a big woman, but she was apparently friendly. She then paralyzed Deepraid, stripped him of his clothes, and left him there to be shamed. This is more or less pretty spot on with what was done to Hlormar. It's left ambiguous, and I almost wonder if it's like that for the player to point fingers at Sosia, considering she's a short walk down the road. It doesn't help that, similar to Hlormar, Hisin doesn't move from his spot, even though he's dead set on killing the witch who did this to him. She's already done it to Hlormar, whether in the name of self-defense or not, and it doesn't paint a very good picture of her. A very real possibility as well is that both of the Nords made inappropriate advances on Sosia, as both of them did describe her as being friendly. This could have given them the wrong impression and resulted in them getting what they deserved. The simple fact though is that there's just too many unanswered questions and a lot of circumstantial evidence laid out. The writers left out just enough details that it almost becomes impossible to come up with conclusions. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think the true story is. Until next time, keep on adventuring.